You believe you are in control, that every choice you make is your own, that every step you take, every message you send, every feeling you develop, is born from your own will. But what if I told you that this belief is the very chain that binds you? Listen carefully, because the greatest form of control is the one you never notice. From the moment you enter the game of attraction, you assume the role of the chooser. You think you are observing, evaluating, deciding. You believe you are the one who initiates, who pursues, who selects. And yet, without realizing it, you are being guided. Not by force, not by command, but by something far more dangerous, subtle influence. It begins with small things. A delayed reply, a carefully chosen word, a look that lingers just long enough to plant a question in your mind. These are not accidents, these are signals, and your mind, eager for meaning, begins to chase them. You start thinking, why did she respond like that? Why did she ignore that message? Why did she suddenly become distant? And just like that, the game has begun. You are no longer acting, you are reacting. This is the illusion. You believe you are making moves, but in truth, you are responding to a script that was never yours to begin with. Understand this. Whoever controls the emotional rhythm controls the interaction, and most men surrender this power without resistance. They become predictable, available, transparent. They reveal their interests too quickly, their intentions too clearly, their emotions too openly. And in doing so, they hand over the one thing that should never be given freely, their psychological leverage. Because once your patterns are known, you can be controlled. If she knows you will reply instantly, she can delay. If she knows you seek validation, she can withdraw it. If she knows you are invested, she can reduce her effort, and you will compensate. This is how control is established, not through dominance, but through dependency. You begin to adjust yourself. You overthink your words, you analyze every interaction, you try harder, and the more you try, the deeper you fall into the illusion that you are still in charge. But ask yourself this: if you were truly in control, would you feel uncertain? Would you feel anxious waiting for a response? Would your mood shift based on someone else's attention? No. Control does not feel like confusion. Control feels like calm. And yet, most men exist in a constant state of emotional reaction, mistaking it for effort, mistaking it for attraction, mistaking it for connection. This is not power. This is manipulation disguised as romance. The truth is harsh, but necessary. People reveal their intentions not through what they give you, but through what they make you feel. If you feel off balance, it is not by chance. If you feel the need to chase, it is not accidental. If you feel like you are losing control, it is because someone else has already taken it. And they did it without you noticing. That is the art. Not to force you, but to guide you. Not to command you, but to make you believe you chose it yourself. This is why awareness is dangerous. Because the moment you see the pattern, it loses its power over you. You begin to notice the shifts, the calculated distance, the inconsistency that keeps you engaged, the subtle push and pull that keeps your mind occupied. And once you see it, you have a choice. You can continue playing the role of the reactive participant, chasing signals, decoding behavior, hoping for clarity that never comes. Or you can step back. You can observe without reacting. You can detach from the need to respond immediately, to prove yourself, to seek validation. Because here is the truth most will never accept: the one who needs less controls more. When you no longer depend on the outcome, you cannot be manipulated by it. When your actions are not driven by emotional impulses, they become unpredictable. And unpredictability is power. This is where the illusion begins to break. Because the game only works on those who are unaware they are playing it. The moment you stop reacting automatically, the moment you question the patterns instead of following them, you disrupt the entire dynamic. Now, instead of being guided, you become the observer. Instead of chasing meaning, you recognize strategy. And in that shift, control begins to return to you. But understand this carefully: regaining control is not about dominating others, it is about mastering yourself, because the one who cannot control his own reactions will always be controlled by someone who can. You have been taught to believe that love requires surrender, that to feel deeply, you must give deeply, that attachment is proof of sincerity, and emotional vulnerability is the currency of connection. But this belief is the very thing that strips you of power. Listen closely, because in the world of influence, emotion is not just a feeling, it is a weapon. And those who cannot control it will always fall victim to those who can. You see, most men enter the game already defeated. Not because they lack value, but because they lack restraint. The moment they feel attraction, they begin to invest. They give attention freely, they prioritize too quickly, they allow their emotions to dictate their actions without question. And in doing so, they expose themselves, they become readable, predictable, controllable. This is the danger of attachment. It ties your internal state to external outcomes. Your mood becomes dependent on responses. Your confidence rises and falls based on attention. Your sense of worth becomes fragile, easily influenced, easily shaken. And once someone realizes this, the balance of power shifts instantly. Because now, they don't need to chase you. They only need to manage you. A delayed reply can create anxiety. A cold tone can create doubt. A moment of distance can pull you closer than any effort ever could. And you, without even realizing it, begin adjusting your behavior to regain what you fear losing. This is not connection. This is quiet control, and it thrives on one thing: your inability to detach. Understand this. Emotional detachment is not the absence of feeling. It is the mastery of it. It is the ability to experience emotion without being driven by it, to feel attraction without surrendering your position, to desire without losing your discipline. This is what makes a man dangerous. Because when you are emotionally detached, you cannot be manipulated through emotional fluctuation. You are not shaken by inconsistency. You are not pulled in by sudden attention, nor pushed away by distance. You remain steady, unmoved, in control of your own state, and this stability creates a paradox, because while most are driven by emotion, the one who is not becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability creates intrigue. You see, people are drawn to what they cannot easily understand or control. When your reactions are not immediate, when your emotions are not exposed, when your attention is not guaranteed, you force others to question, to think, to invest, and the moment they begin investing, the dynamic shifts. Now they are the ones wondering. Now they are the ones analyzing. Now they are the ones seeking your validation. This is the power of detachment. It reverses the roles without a single word being spoken. But understand this clearly: detachment is not indifference. It is not about pretending not to care, because false detachment is easy to detect. It is forced, unnatural, and often rooted in fear rather than strength. True detachment comes from abundance, from knowing that your value is not dependent on any single person, from understanding that you do not need to chase because you are already complete. This mindset changes everything. You no longer seek approval. You no longer fear loss. You no longer feel the urge to prove yourself. And when those urges disappear, so does the leverage others have over you, because control requires access. And emotional detachment denies that access. It closes the door to manipulation. It removes the triggers that others rely on. And it places you in a position where your actions are deliberate, not reactive. Think about this: who holds more power? The one who is waiting, or the one who is content regardless of the outcome? The one who needs reassurance, or the one who remains certain within himself? The answer is obvious, and yet most men choose the former without realizing it. They chase clarity. They seek closure. They demand consistency from others, while lacking consistency within themselves. And this is why they lose. Because in the absence of self-control, external control becomes inevitable. But when you master emotional detachment, everything changes. You begin to move differently. You respond instead of react. You observe instead of assume. You maintain your pace instead of adjusting to someone else's rhythm. And this quiet discipline speaks louder than any display of emotion ever could, because it signals one thing above all else: that you cannot be controlled, that your presence is a choice, not a need, that your attention is earned, not given freely, and in a world where most are driven by impulse, the one who is not becomes rare, difficult to read, difficult to influence, difficult to replace. Keynote 3. The scarcity principle. Why being available makes you replaceable. There is a dangerous lie that has been sold to you, a lie that sounds innocent, even virtuous, that if you show more effort, give more attention, and remain constantly available, you will be valued more. But the truth, as understood by minds like Niccolò Machiavelli, operates in the opposite direction. Value is not created through abundance. It is created through scarcity, and the moment you become too available, you begin to lose it. Look closely at human nature. What is easily accessible is rarely appreciated. What is always present becomes invisible. What requires no effort to obtain holds no real power. This is not cruelty. This is psychology. And yet, most men unknowingly position themselves in the weakest possible way. They make themselves constantly reachable, always ready to reply, always eager to engage, always present, waiting, hoping to be noticed. They believe this shows interest. They believe this builds connection. But what it actually builds is predictability. And predictability is the enemy of attraction. When someone knows they can have your attention at any moment, without effort, without uncertainty, without challenge, your presence loses its weight. You become part of the background, expected, taken for granted, replaceable, because there is no tension, no anticipation, no sense of loss in your absence. And without these elements, there is no reason to value you beyond convenience. This is where the scarcity principle begins to reveal its power. Because the less available something is, the more attention it commands. The more effort it requires, the more it is appreciated. And the more uncertain its presence becomes, the more it is desired. This is not manipulation, it is perception, and perception is everything. Understand this clearly. People do not chase what is guaranteed. They chase what feels uncertain, what feels limited, what feels just out of reach. This is why inconsistency, when controlled, creates obsession. Not chaos, but calculated unpredictability, a rhythm that cannot be easily understood, a presence that is felt but not always accessible. And this is where most fail, because they fear absence. They believe that if they step back, they will be forgotten. That if they are not constantly present, they will be replaced. But what they do not realize is this constant presence is what makes them replaceable in the first place. Because when you are always there, there is no cost to losing you, no consequence to ignoring you, no urgency to value you. But when your presence becomes selective, everything changes. Now, your time is not assumed. It is noticed. Now, your attention is not guaranteed. It is earned. Now, your absence is not ignored. It is felt. And this feeling creates curiosity. Curiosity turns into attention. Attention turns into investment. And investment shifts the dynamic of power. Because now, instead of you trying to maintain connection, the other person begins to maintain it. They begin to wonder, to question, to seek. Why are you not always available? What are you doing instead? Why does your attention feel limited? And in these questions, they begin to place value on you, not because you demanded it, but because you made them feel it. This is the essence of scarcity. It does not beg for attention. It creates conditions where attention is given willingly. But understand, this scarcity must be real. It cannot be faked, because forced distance without purpose feels like a game. It feels unnatural, and it breaks trust rather than building intrigue. True scarcity comes from having a life that does not revolve around one person, from having priorities, goals, and standards that naturally limit your availability, from choosing when to engage instead of feeling the need to always be present. This is what separates strategy from insecurity. One is controlled, the other is reactive, and people can sense the difference. When your absence is rooted in strength, it creates respect. When it is rooted in fear, it creates confusion. So the question is not whether you should be available. The question is, are you available by choice or by need? Because need destroys value. It signals dependency. It reveals that your time, your attention, your presence are not governed by discipline, but by desire for validation. And validation, when given too freely, becomes worthless. But when you control your availability, when you understand that your presence is something to be given selectively, you begin to operate differently. You stop reacting instantly. You stop overextending. You stop making yourself constantly accessible. And instead you create space that allows others to think about you, to miss you, to wonder about you. And in that space, your value grows, because what is not always present becomes important. What is not easily obtained becomes desirable. What is not guaranteed becomes powerful. This is the principle that governs not just attraction, but influence itself. And those who understand it never need to chase, because they become the one who is chased.